Good afternoon, and welcome to a special episode of The Angry Astronaut. This is a private live stream for my supporters, subsequently to be recorded and released to the general community. However, if you want to be part of these kinds of events in the future, you can either support me through Discord or through the little join button at the bottom right side of your screen. Thanks very much, by the way, to all of my supporters. I have over a dozen of them currently here with me. We are going to be discussing Artemis and the challenges, some of the unexpected challenges that have come up with Artemis, and whether or not we really feel that this is something that's going to happen in any kind of realistic time frame. Because, obviously the People's Republic of China have aggressively moved up their timetable, where at the same time we keep finding more problems with our own timetable. The most recent of which I just released on a video, which is, of course, the lack of astronauts. And this is the one that really has, brought to light the idea, or the kind of uncomfortable concept of, is the government serious about this? Is NASA serious about this? Did they ever think that Artemis was going to be a real thing? Or, is this something that was being done for the benefit of the public, whereas, it was really uncertain as to whether or not it was going to come through? Was it just designed to create a bunch of jobs? And it's easy to cancel a technical program, but it's difficult to cancel a government job. So this is one of a number of things that we've been discussing. Have a lot of people who have joined me right now, and I'm here to take questions and comments. Feel free to type your questions into live stream Q&A, or simply put your hand up and ask your question, and we can do it live. Either one you want to do. So, anybody want to be first? And nobody likes, we got Fan who wants to be first. Bear with me. Feel free to join, Fan.
I was just going to say Happy New Year, Angry.
Well, thank you.
Haven't had a chance to do that yet. Yeah, Artemis is quite a conundrum.
Yeah, and it seems to get worse all the time. And it's very strange to me that we 44 astronauts versus the 150 that we used to have. I just saw a release on SLS, the Twitter SLS page, about how, rockets are currently being produced for Artemis 2, Artemis 3, Artemis 4. We've got, we're building SLSs like crazy. And yet, do we have the astronauts to support the program? I mean, what the hell is good as a human space program if you don't have humans for it? And I don't get it. I mean, can you think of a reason that NASA made this kind of an oversight?
Well, I don't know. That's kind of why I dialed in to hear what you had to say about it.
Yeah, I don't know. Generally, I don't think that I don't believe that we have that kind of ineptitude. I really don't. I mean, it just seems to me that NASA can't, there's no way they're that stupid. So it makes me think that there is a possibility that, the people, the powers that be, believe that there's a good chance that this program isn't going to make it, or that it's going to be far more significantly delayed than they're saying it's going to be. That, yeah, sure, they said 2024, but all of us know, hush, hush, that it's 2028. It was always 2028, and we were never going to be able to make it any better than that. And in that amount of time, we'll have enough time to come up with some more astronauts for the program. If that's the case, that is really, really nasty tactics. That's something that gets me really pissed off. If that's what they had in mind, was to, create all these jobs, to get all this excitement about going back to the moon in 2024, when they knew damn well that wasn't going to happen. So yeah, I mean, and there just seems to be huge inconsistencies here, and not just inconsistencies, but also massive challenges. We're not just talking about the number of astronauts here. We're talking about the HLS program. I mean, yeah, sure, we've chosen SpaceX to do Lunar Starship, but how far along are we with that? And how long is it going to take? I mean, even SpaceX, as aggressively as they move forward, how long is it going to take to get Starship human rated, get the whole LEO refueling thing taken care of completely, without any serious flaws, and get astronauts trained on it? I mean, they haven't even started on the life support yet. 2025, really? 3 years to do all that? I've got my doubts, and that's just one thing, one factor of many. Now, granted, we don't need an HLS if you're just orbiting the moon or if you're docking with the gateway and not going down. But oh yeah, Leon, feel free to join us.
All right, hi, Angry.
Hello.
To you again. What I've been thinking about is basically with the ISS, we have a joint venture between the US and the ESA and so many more, different space agencies to bring astronauts up to the ISS. In the event of not having enough astronauts, which it really looks like it is right now, I was just thinking, I mean, there's so many more agencies who would definitely be willing, in my opinion, to send astronauts, especially from the ESA or something like that, and bring them into that program. Well, for me as a European, that would obviously be really, really cool. But I was just, I don't know, the Artemis program is obviously a US and NASA only project at the moment. But I mean, maybe in the future, if there really is enough demand and if there really are not enough astronauts to begin with, maybe a joint venture would also, probably be very good in that place.
I couldn't agree with you more, Leon. It was one of the reasons why I put lots of videos of ESA astronauts training at the Johnson Space Center on that particular video. I included lots of stuff that was mostly about ESA astronauts rather than NASA astronauts, because I even put in a little caption on there saying we're probably going to need them. And it's true. I think that we are desperately going to need them. As a matter, and also, I mean, if we truly want to make Artemis an international approach. The Artemis Accords was not just signed by the U.S. and Canada, who are the ones who have the current crop of NASA astronauts. These were agreements that were signed by almost every Western European nation as well. So this is something that should absolutely be a European venture as well as an American venture. So yeah, it shouldn't just be ESA astronauts filling in the gaps on the ISS. We should definitely have Europeans included in Artemis training. Put Europeans in the rotation without question. I see no reason as to why we haven't done that. So definitely appreciate it. Johnny, yes, I see you've joined us as well.
On our partnership with ESA, the European Space Agency. First, I want to ask the Inspector General report for NASA that you're referring to, that's saying that we're kind of at a shortage of astronauts for the missions we want.
Yes.
Does that report only refer to American astronauts?
Yes, American and Canadian. Yeah.
Oh, American and Canadian.
Right.
Because wherever they come from, they're going to have to train at Houston.
Correct.
So if ESA is going to contribute astronauts, ESA will have to pay for the training and right. Such like that. So that may be a stopgap.
Yeah.
Also, I want to say that ESA is an important part of Artemis. They build I believe it's through ESA, the service module for the Orion.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're an integral part. They should definitely be part of it. There's no question about that. As a matter of fact, I think that there should be an argument made that Samantha Cristoforelli should be the first European woman to set foot on the moon. I think that there should be a very strong argument made because she's practically a poster child for the NASA training program anyway. Her picture is everywhere at the Johnson Space Center. You would think that she's a NASA astronaut, and she isn't, but you'd think she was. So,
have you visited Houston or?
Pardon me.
Johnson Space Center.
Yeah, the Johnson Space Center, Houston. Yeah, same thing. Sorry, but yeah, it's they're all over. Her picture is everywhere there. I mean, she's a very photogenic young woman, and so she's great for their promotional things. But she's an ESA astronaut. She's not NASA. But yeah, I think that she should, if she wants to go anyway, she should be put in the rotation to be the first European woman to set foot on the moon. I really think that she has an enormous amount of experience. So I think she'd be a great choice. All right, we got another one, I think. Halo fan.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Angry, I was thinking about as we move forward, especially with commercial space, we have this nexus between, let's say, NASA astronauts, NASA approved astronauts, and commercial astronauts. At some point, won't that line get a little blurred? I mean, you're either a qualified astronaut or not. What do you think about that kind of?
In my opinion, I think Axiom is going to be a lot more like Axiom as an example anyway. They'll be probably the first putting commercial astronauts up. They're going to be a little bit more easy on the requirements and the restrictions. They'll be a little bit more liberal about all that simply because they are involving a lot of other countries in the astronaut selection process because they're paying for it. For example, the nation of Monaco is going to be included in Axiom's astronaut program, even though obviously Monaco, isn't necessarily going to be contributing a ton of candidates given how small that country is, but they're going to be paying a lot of money for their people to go up. So it's possible that we could have a gap between NASA training and Axiom's training or another private company. Will NASA accept that as being sufficient? I don't know. It's a big question because they may not be held up to the same standards. Yeah. Or anybody else. Let me have a look. There may have been some questions asked here. Yes, we definitely have some others as well. Bear with me for just a moment here. Yeah, why not JAXA? This is Airborne Bob, by the way, who doesn't have a microphone. Why not JAXA, the United Kingdom, even Australia? Yeah, absolutely, why not? I mean, these are organizations who have put up astronauts in the past. Granted, they would go through, an astronaut training program. But go ahead. Why wouldn't they? Coyer sorry about that. Okay. Appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, by all means. And the UK is indeed part of the ESA. That's true, Carl. So they would definitely they might contribute through that avenue, or maybe not. Things with the United Kingdom tends to be very fluid in terms of how they're contributing. But yeah, there are not very many British astronauts. That's for sure. Coyer, go right ahead and join us again. Feel free to put yourself back up on the stage, Coyer. Yeah, go ahead, Abigail. Go ahead. Oh, Coyer just joined as well. Okay.
Coyer, you can go first.
Okay. Go ahead, Claire.
Yeah, go ahead, Abigail. Go ahead.
Oh, I've still got that background.
Oh, Claire just joined as well. Okay.
Okay, you can go first.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go
Okay.
ahead, Abigail.
Okay. First things first, this is probably going to be a controversial opinion, but I think Artemis as a flagship program has already failed in the goals of a flagship program.
Go ahead and support that viewpoint.
Because to me, a flagship program from NASA should be pushing the edge and of technology capabilities and so on and so forth. And yet Artemis is built on between 50 and 60-year-old technology, and it's
The fact that it uses SLS,
yeah, it's built on SLS, which has 50-year-old engines.
Yeah, it's true.
And
I guess on the other side of the equation, they've also embraced Lunar Starship as part of it, which definitely is cutting edge.
yeah, but
so,
that gets to my second half of my opinion, which is they're just taking too long. Like this SLS and Artemis started when I was a bloody kid.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people forget stuff in 5 years. Never mind 20.
Yep. Yeah, it's definitely been going for entirely too long. It's something I rant about on a regular basis. I can't agree with you more. It is frustrating. And even though I'd love to see it succeed simply because it's the only major lunar exploration program we have out there right now, aside from what the People's Republic of China is trying to do, still, yeah, that's definitely a very good point. Leon, you had something to say. Leon may have stepped away while we were discussing that. We have some other things. Coyer, I do apologize for the technical issues. I'm not sure what was happening with all that. But feel free to put out your questions and comments on live stream Q&A, and I will mention them as well. I mean, there's a lot of different avenues that you can use to contribute to this discussion, and I'm thrilled with any of them. Yeah, Leon, go ahead and join us.
All right. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Yeah, to Abigail's point, I definitely see how Artemis definitely hasn't, lived up to the expectations of pretty much anyone. But for me at least, I have never had so many people be excited about space and space travel in general, even with people that aren't into space as much as we here are. I had plenty of conversation about that. And even though I'm not in the US, we're basically the public opinion here of NASA and space travel is just in general a lot quieter. Let's just call it like that. And that's also why I brought up earlier about the European agency putting up astronauts for the ESA, because I think, definitely compared to the Apollo program back then, the public opinion or just interest in general is a lot less. In general, I mean, people aren't that into Artemis as they were to Apollo. And that's why I think it would really contribute to the public opinion and also just the conversation about it if it were a more global try to get back to the moon and put people back onto the moon, the first woman onto the moon. So I think with a more engagement with new astronauts, that would also change the general public view on that, on Artemis in general, and maybe speed up it a little bit if more eyes are on it.
Yeah, I mean, without question, I have a love-hate relationship with Artemis. I just do. I mean, there is no question in my mind that if and when Artemis 1 takes off, and I will, unless I'm on my deathbed or something, I will be observing that in person. I'm going to get very emotional. There's no question about that. I mean, that's going to be a collide, unless the rocket blows up or something like that, which case I'll get emotional for other reasons. But if it succeeds, if Artemis 1 goes off without a hitch, and the Orion splashes down, everything's retrieved, everything goes well, I am going to be super excited, because then we are there. Then we have taken that first giant step towards returning to the moon, the first really serious effort that's led to some kind of fruition in over 50 years. Since I was a little kid, since I was far too small to realize what was going on, to recognize what was happening. I mean, I remember nothing about Apollo, obviously. So, yeah. I mean, it's going to be a massively exciting thing when this happens, and I certainly hope it happens sooner rather than later. I'm glad that NASA is holding out hope for March, that they're still saying that they might be able to get Artemis 1 off the ground in March. I'm glad to see them pushing forward aggressively on this to try to make it happen after all these years of delay. They're finally trying to get this rocket off the ground, and I'm excited about that. I'm excited, but at the same time, I'm also really, really concerned about it. Just a couple of points. Bruden62 remarked that JWST went 10 years longer than expected. This delay is not unprecedented. True. We don't need another Hubble, another shuttle accident. Also true. So I believe anyone with an engineering issue is allowed to voice a concern. Better a delay than a failure. Yeah, I don't have to like it, but understand it. Very true, Bruden62. One of the reasons why we succeeded back, though, in the 1960s is because we took huge risks. The Soviets would have beaten the United States to the moon otherwise if it hadn't, been for a high level of aggression, and also a high risk factor involved. And I think we're in the same race right now with the People's Republic of China. Go too slowly, and I think the Chinese will establish a presence there, and also a certain degree of control, if that's what they want to establish, before the rest of the world can. And I think that's the only factor that I would take into account in trying to rush things. Johnny, you've just joined us. Welcome back.
Hey, I was just kind of thinking and reflecting back to why the Apollo program succeeded as it did. NASA, the United States and the Soviet Union were competing to show which society, which country had the was the master of technology and such, and could rule the world. The space programs were a demonstration of that, meaning that the space programs were simply, in the end, boil it down, political tools.
Yeah.
That's all it was.
Mm-hmm.
Some science got, brought into that, but in the end, that's what it was. And so was the space shuttle. The space shuttle was born in the Cold War.
Very much so.
And after the Soviet Union fell, we brought Russia was kind of on its knees economically, and we brought them in basically to keep their scientists and engineers working for something productive instead of turning around and selling their knowledge to
Saddam Hussein.
dictators and stuff. Yes.
Yeah.
So that saved the space station, which was the Space Station Freedom initially under the Reagan administration. The Clinton administration brought Russia on board. Russia already had the hardware for Mir 2. So that saved the program. Also, there was international agreements that we had to live up to, and that helped sustain the life of the International Space Station because we didn't want to look bad to the rest of the world.
So here's the question, Johnny. Do we have the same kind of commitment to Artemis? Do we have the same things that are going to drive it forward versus all of these other things in the past?
Not until the Chinese land on the moon, and that would be a Sputnik moment.
And then it's a little too late. It may be too late.
Yeah, if they can, if they get really aggressive and block us from entering lunar orbit or landing, for that matter. But the moon's a big place.
It is.
But it's still then a matter of politics and saving face. Uh-huh. Well, yeah, that's,
a comment was just made that was not recorded about how Apollo had Kennedy in its corner, and that made a very big deal to its success, big contribution.
Absolutely. But, there was still the competition between the two major countries. Also, early on, there was talk that Kennedy was thinking of trying to join the Soviet Union and the United States for, a combined flight to the moon.
Yes.
But also after Kennedy's assassination, there was no way politically, domestically, that we could take away that that goal of landing a man on the moon before the end of the decade and bringing him safely back to Earth.
Our time is getting a little limited. I'm sorry to cut in on you there. I just want to make sure that I get these other comments in real quick on the live stream Q&A, because we are starting to fall behind as far as that's concerned. The JWST, Carl Themmel replied to that, said you may eventually have to change to a zero failure policy for manned projects once they are close to completion. Anton Nim had a question: is SpaceX aware of considering the Valles Marineris? I have no idea, Anton. They should be, but that's not where they currently have their landing spots, but that could change overnight as far as I'm concerned. Let's see here. There's also, so just want to make sure that we've got everything else. Remember when Starship had landing legs? Where's that design now? Want to make sure that I've got all the other it's polar areas where the ice is. Yeah, I mean that is a good question. Or if we're talking about the moon, yeah, the moon's a big place, but the polar regions of the moon is small. And the areas where we're going to be able to easily establish colonies on the moon to where they can be self-sustaining is going to depend on the presence of water ice, and that could be very limited indeed. Bruden62 comments that it's talked about Aliens, the famous series, and how it's cold, harsh, and foreboding. Yes, indeed, function over form. So, yeah, I would say that is probably the future of colonization. And so I just wanted to catch up on that. Leon, I see that you've joined us again. Go ahead.
Yeah. Also on the subject of America versus China in that regard, I really think that once the Chinese have a big upper hand when it comes to their schedule, I really think that will put a lot of pressure on on the US and NASA, which could also mean that the budget of NASA will get a little boost, because obviously compared to the Apollo era, NASA has a lot less to work with. And once the pressure is really on, I could really see, maybe under another administration at that point, that the speed at which things are going could increase. And also I really think that we will get back to the moon, even not really because of NASA, but also if Elon Musk and SpaceX in general want to achieve their goals, they really have to get to the moon in any shape or form to make.
And they're committing to it a lot.
And they're committing to it a lot. And so I think we will see US people in general back on the moon, probably from the US, because SpaceX obviously under ITAR reasons will only be able to put Americans on the moon, I believe. So there is a lot of things that are yet to happen, I think, to make that progress really start getting more and more traction, which is unfortunate because it's already so late.
Yeah, because we should be getting that traction now. Matt, notice that you've joined us as well. Please go ahead.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Right. Good. Of course, for dangerous missions like obviously a moon landing, NASA obviously want the best of the best. But do you think they might have to loosen their requirements for becoming an astronaut candidate?
I don't know, because I mean they had 18,000 candidates, triple what they had in 2013, and yet they still only took 12 candidates out of those 18,000, whereas they only had 6,000 candidates back in 2013. I think that they brought on fewer astronauts than they really could have. I think that out of those 18,000 people, there had to have been a lot more qualified people than they brought on. I think they just had a set number, and that number was too low. Just my opinion.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes. Yes. Yeah, probably so. And actually, I kind of need to get going fairly soon anyway. So yeah, just to go ahead and wrap things up, to just once again to explain what's been going on here. This has been a private conversation with a lot of my supporters. My earbuds will not stay in no matter what I do, but that's something I'm going to have to deal with as time goes on. But I want to say, just offer my deepest appreciation to the people who support this channel, and to let you know that I'm going to be doing these kinds of things a lot more frequently as time goes on. I really appreciate your support. My health hasn't been great lately, but still, I see no reason why I can't do these sorts of things more frequently. So I intend to continue with them. So yeah, a lot of good points have been brought up about Artemis, about the challenges that faces, but there still are some positive things as well, and reasons to get excited. And as with all other scientific achievements and other achievements in human history, there are massive challenges, massive barriers that we face, and huge mistakes that are made along the way. That is inevitable. And I am confident that as long as we want to, as long as we have the commitment to, we will be able to overcome all of these challenges and land on the moon in 2025 or 2026 if we are actually committed to do it. It's easy to fail. It's easy to give up. We're really good at doing that, but we can also succeed if we put our minds to it, and we have demonstrated how good we are at doing that as well. So until we actually focus on succeeding, I urge all of you to stay angry about space.